We just landed in Boston for PAX East 2016, and before the show starts, I had a couple of quick hardware news items in rapid fire order. And leading up to those, though, this hardware coverage is brought to you by CyberPower, who make the fanbook that we overclocked past 4 gigahertz just recently. So for the news items coming out at the beginning of the show here, one of those is Corsair's new rapid fire keyboards. They've got the rapid fire K70, K65, and both of those come in RGB variants. So there's effectively 3 keyboards. The K70 has one with a non-RGB, and these are priced at $170, the K70 RGB rapid fire, and then $140 for the K65 RGB rapid fire, and $130 for the K70 rapid fire non-RGB. What's new with these? They basically take the same housing that you're used to for the most part from the K70 and the other series keyboards in that Vengeance line, and they add a new type of switch. So Cherry, as you all know, make many different types of switches, and one of those new ones is the Cherry MX Speed switch, which actuates at 1.2 millimeters, so it's definitely an aggressive actuation depth, and they actuate about 40% faster than your standard Cherry MX switches, which in theory anyway means that the sort of high-level pro gamers would potentially be able to see a difference where they push the key and they get just that much extra speed on the responsiveness from the key press. But for folks like, I would imagine, most of you non-pro gamers, I'm certainly not one, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't exist, because ultimately there's really no harm in having more switches. Switch feel comes down to the user, it's very subjective, and whether or not you get a real perceptible gain out of that extra speed doesn't change the fact if you like the switch feel or not. And if you like it, then it's worth looking into. So that is the new MX Speed switch on the Corsair K70, K65, and K70 with the RGB variant. It now has synchronized lighting like the Logitech devices have these days. So definitely some fierce competition there from Corsair. The next news item is from MSI. They've got a new all-in-one computer called the Aegis, and it's, I guess, supposed to resemble a bit of a shield. It sort of looks like a shoe that Hermes might wear, but it's basically a normal tower on top of a pedestal, and it's kind of a smaller form factor, compact tower. I don't know exactly the specs just yet because we haven't seen it in person, but hope to be doing a video on it while at the show here at PAX East. What I can tell you is that it's got 2 3.5-inch hard drive cages that are easily accessible on the bottom of the system. It's got a 2.5-inch SSD area in the same space as the hard drive cages, and those are all easily accessible. In terms of form factors, the video card support is effectively everything. It goes up to larger 980 Ti's. MSI certainly makes some of the largest ones, and they want to support those. And of course the 390X for comparable AMD devices as well. The last news item is from AMD. We're talking about the Wraith cooler again. So you may be familiar with Wraith cooler from our review, but this shipped on the FX 8370 CPU a little while ago, and that was all it was available on. Now it's on the flagship APU, and as of today, AMD will begin shipping the Wraith cooler with select 8350 and 6300 series 6350 CPUs from their FX lineup. You can still buy the non-Wraith version of those. They're a bit cheaper. Expect to spend about $10 more on the lower end devices and about $20 to $30 more on the higher end devices with the Wraith cooler. And in theory, that'll drop a little bit as the market neutralizes. Newegg certainly sort of is large enough to set their own prices in some regard. So do stay tuned for price changes on that, but the Wraith cooler is now available on more FX CPUs. A little bit too late for me for the most part, but the good news here is that the Wraith cooler is actually legitimately good. It's better, I think, than the Intel CPU cooler. We've tested them both, all of them really, and it's a good step in the right direction for AMD. Actually, it's more than a step in the right direction. Hopefully they move this cooler to Zen in future architectures. I imagine they would, and if they do that, it's a pretty strong starting point, because generally with the NS 125 watt cooler or the Wraith cooler, it's not really necessary to buy an aftermarket CPU cooler, which of course reduces your total build cost, and that plays largely in AMD's favor as a budget targeting CPU vendor. So that's all for the quick news items, 3 news items for you before PAX East starts. We're gonna be on the show floor when this video goes live, which will be 9 a.m. on Friday, and we'll have some news from several other vendors for the day, including Logitech. We're gonna be talking to Intel, Richard Garriott on Friday or Saturday, and a couple of other industry icons. So do stay tuned. Subscribe for more information. Patreon link to post-roll video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.